So IK Multimedia releases the TONEX Pedal, and I was one of a handful of YouTubers that got product early, though I think that was quite a big hand. Anyways, my video got a lot of questions, so I decided to devote an entire video to answering your questions about the TONEX Pedal. Want some answers? Then why don't you join me? Yes, this is a segment that I like to call QCC. That's questions, comments, concerns. If you have any of those, well, you've come to the right place. Now, as always in this segment, I'd like to welcome my good friends in the cheap seats.
You know, I thought TONEX was some kind of workout machine, but judging by your blubbery body, I can see that I was wrong.
Anyways, let's start with an update. So a couple new pieces of gear were added to the studio recently, and the news isn't so much about the gear as, yes, Dan, you've just acquired something else great, good for you. Anyways, it's more about where things are going with this channel. So to start, Angle Powerball 2 actually had an appearance in my TONEX Pedal video. If you saw that, I actually modeled that amplifier. That tone model is available on tone.net. I'll put some information in the description. And another new piece of gear that arrived this past week is the SIR Reactive Load. Now, DI recording is a big topic on my channel. I've done a lot of stuff with two notes. I've got the Torpedo Capture 8 and the Torpedo Capture X. Been a workhorse here in the studio. But with the addition of this new amplifier, I wanted to start setting up dedicated DI setups for my amps and just different requirements, just different way of looking at things. But the big news really for me, and as I present to you, is I'm doing more and more guitar content on this channel. It's not new here because I do a lot of home studio stuff. There's dozens of guitar videos on this channel, but I've really tripled down on guitar content as of late, and these are two essential pieces of gear, and I suspect it's not going to be the last bit of new gear that we see here in the studio. Anyways, more and more guitar content coming, so make sure if you're not liked and subscribed, now would be a good time to do that. All right, let's get to our first question. So first up, I have a comment from Plexico, who had a comment about the comparison I did between a tone model on the TONEX Pedal and the actual Angle Powerball 2 that I modeled.
That is crazy, the non-difference between the actual amp and the TONEX into the return of the same amp. Sold.
Well, if you didn't see my TONEX Pedal video, what I did was I created a tone model of the Powerball 2, and then I compared it to the actual amplifier. So, by the way, if you haven't seen that video, maybe you should. I'll put a link in the description. But what I did was I took the TONEX pedal, so the model that I created of the Powerball 2, and I ran it through the return in the effects loop of this amp. What that does, that bypasses the preamp, really the tone portion. So the tone model is being amplified by the actual same amplifier where I created the tone model, and then that went into the DAW and I used a cab IR. And then I used the same cab IR, but I recorded the amp by itself, same setting that I used to create the tone model, and I compared the two together. So in case you missed it, let's check that out. So just to be clear, there's no funny business going on there. It's the tone model that I created from the Powerball 2, comparing it to itself, and it's pretty amazing how close they are. All right, so I've got two questions that relate to each other.
The future version will hopefully have an effects loop and XLR out. It would be great to have time-based pedals after the preamp, but before the output.
Oh, by the way, as you see these comments on screen, I used to correct the errors or the typos and things like that. You know what, that's a lot of unnecessary work. So what you see is what I got.
I wish this pedal had an effects loop built in since it has stereo output capability. The effects loop should also be stereo loops, and also a separate pair of stereo XLR output with the cab sims VIR to go to front of house or DAW, while the existing stereo pair quarter-inch jacks with no cab sim VIRs IRs goes to guitar amps. So I think I'll wait for something else.
So there seems to be a misconception from some people as to what the TONEX pedal actually is. Now, TONEX is an ecosystem. So basically an ecosystem is a number of different things working together to create one experience. TONEX started as a plugin and as an app that runs on your computer and now extends to a pedal, and there's a capture feature in between where you can capture your amps with your own computer. You don't need any additional other hardware except for some kind of reamping box or the TONEX capture box, which IK Multimedia also has available. But this means that you could decide what TONEX is for you. And if you want to take everything you've done on your desktop and you want to take it on the road, well, that's what the TONEX pedal does. It's basically a player for all of the tone models that you've created in your computer. Now, this is not a modeling amplifier. You can't model on here, and it's not an amplifier. It's a pedal. There's no power here. So the idea that people think, well, it needs an effects loop. Well, what is an effects loop? An effects loop is something we have on actual amplifiers that allows you to insert effects in between the preamp and the power amp. There's no power amp here, right? The only difference here is if we put something afterwards, because what I recommended in my video, if you've got distortion pedals, fuzz pedals, boost pedals, things like that, you put that before the input stage of the TONEX pedal. And then if you want any reverbs, well, there is built-in reverb, but if you want to use your own reverb, and there is stereo output, so you can use stereo effects, but reverbs, delays, modulation effects, things like that, you'll put them on the output stage of the TONEX pedal. The only difference to you might be that, well, the speaker comes before the effects. Now, think about this. If you're recording your guitar, even with a real cab and an amplifier, you're going to mic the cabinet, you're going to record it. Where's your effects going to go? It's not going to go before the speaker. It's actually technically going to go after. So it's really not any different. Yes, in a live setting using a real tube amp, you're going to insert your effects into the loop, and your speaker is really the last in the chain. A little bit different, but I'll tell you, the difference between putting an effect like a delay in front of the amp versus putting it through the loop is dramatic. Putting it before or after the speaker, I really don't think you're going to notice a difference, but it's a small trade-off for something as convenient as this pedal. And really that's what this is. This is convenience. This is a lot of great sounding tone models, very realistic tone models, as I just showed you earlier. So I think that the idea that this should have an effects loop and all this other stuff, I think is a lot to ask of such a small form factor, and would really, I think, defeat the purpose of having such a portable device that's going to give you a lot of great different amplifier tones, cabinets, pedals, all mixed into one. So if you're waiting for it to have an effects loop, I think you're going to be waiting for a very, very long time.
Would I be able to gut straight into a pair of active monitors that take XLRs, or do I need something like a mixer or some kind of isolation transformer box?
So there are a number of people that asked about the best way to amplify the TONEX pedal. And this kind of relates to the last question where I said that, remember, this is not an amplifier, right? It's a pedal. And the tone models are digital, I don't want to call them recreations, they're tone models of actual amplifiers, amps and speakers. So the end result is something that sounds extremely realistic, as you heard with that comparison that I showed you. So now, how do we get the audience? So let's say we're looking at a gig or if we're jamming, how do we get that experience to the audience? Now, you got to think logically here. If the pedal is already putting out that tone and you just want to amplify that tone, going straight into the front of house, having it mixed in with your band, it's going to sound great, right? It's basically taking what would have been an amplifier speaker setup, but it's now a digital recreation of that, and now you're amplifying that through the PA system. If you're looking at some on-stage solution where you're looking at some kind of powered speakers or something like that, think about what you're putting on the stage, right? If those speakers were designed for guitar, like a speaker cabinet is designed to work with a guitar amp, right? So it complements the amplifier. The speakers behind me in my mixing setup here, those powered speakers, and technically that could work. But is it going to sound like a guitar? No, because those speaker monitors are designed with a flatter response, meant to hear everything in a mix. It's not designed just for guitar. So I don't think the results are going to be very, very favorable. So you got to think logically here is that what do you want the audience to hear? If you're going to put some small speakers on the stage just because you want to have monitors there, and yeah, they're powered, how good is it going to sound? I think it's going to cheapen the effect that the pedal is actually putting out. So either you go into front of house or you're going to use some sort of power amp into a regular cabinet. Don't forget you're going to bypass your cab IRs in that configuration, or running it through another amplifier. So just think logically here is that if you, however you're looking to amplify this pedal, think in terms of guitar. How would that sound? And the best way to know really is to test it for yourself and see if you get the results that you like. By the way, if you are interested in getting a TONEX pedal for yourself and you are in the Sweetwater Catch area, I've got an affiliate link in the description. It's not going to cost you any more, but it will kick a little bit back to the studio and help me bring more content to you, just like this, and I really appreciate that.
Can I record a guitar sound from a recording or CD into TONEX?
No.
And this video needs to be seen by every person whining about no effects loop.
Agreed.
Do you need to purchase the capture box separately?
Yes.
All right, I've got two more questions that also relate to each other.
Great, but there's no chorus, delay, flange, etc. Can TONEX pedal function as pitch change to lower raise a pitch?
Now, questions like these were very common because in an age of all-in-ones, people are wondering if TONEX is an all-in-one. Now, TONEX is not an all-in-one. It's an amplifier modeling ecosystem, with the pedal being sort of the player component of that experience. Now, it does have reverb, and I think that confused a lot of people because they figure, well, if it has reverb, why doesn't it have chorus and flanger and delay and all those things? TONEX was never meant to be an all-in-one. Now, as part of this ecosystem that IK Multimedia has created, there's also Amplitude. Now, that's a desktop application, also runs as a plugin. That's where you can create full signal chains. You can add effects and you can move things around, but there's no Amplitude pedal. Who knows, maybe there'll be some in the future. But TONEX was never meant to be an all-in-one. It's the amplifier stage. You know, pedals, amps, and cabinets. It's not about signal chains. It's about part of the experience. And that's what TONEX was designed to be, and that's what it is. Now, if you're looking for an all-in-one, this is not an all-in-one. It's a great sounding tone modeling ecosystem, and the pedal itself is going to make it all portable for you, but it works closely with your desktop as well, so you can create your own presets, get things sounding the way you want, and then because it's a pedal, it'll work nicely with other pedals if you want to add effects and things like that. So don't think of TONEX as an all-in-one, because if you do, you're going to disappoint yourself. That's not what it was meant to be. But it's a great amp tone modeling pedal that'll let you take a lot of great sounding amplifiers wherever you go.
How can the TONEX pedal be made into an all-in-one rig? Could you add a multi-effects pedal? Could you download someone else's pedal tone models and incorporate them into the TONEX pedal?
So as I stated in my last answer, no, this is not an all-in-one, but you can incorporate other pedals on your pedal board. You can go ampless with this, as long as you have a way to amplify that final pedal board somehow, like I said, either through a PA. But one thing that I should clarify, because that was an interesting part of this question, is that if it's understood that you can tone model pedals and you can tone model amps and cabinets, can you mix and match those things? The idea of a tone model, it's a snapshot. So that means whatever existed at that moment, that's what the tone model is going to contain. It's not like I can model a distortion pedal and a fuzz pedal independently, model my amp, model my cab, and then mix and match them later on. It doesn't work that way. They all react together, and TONEX's aim is to replicate that experience, right? It's not creating individual components, again, where you can create signal chains. You can do that within Amplitude. You know, you can't do it on the pedal, but you can tone model individual pedals, you can tone model individual amplifiers, and you can model them together. But for example, let's say you have a Marshall with a Marshall cabinet, and then you download a free pedal from tone.net and you want to add it to your tone model. You can't do it that way. Now, if you're doing it in the DAW, you can actually have multiple instances of the plugin. So you could put, let's say, a pedal, a distortion pedal, or an overdrive pedal first, then load another instance of the plugin, and then have your tone model amplifier and run those together. That would be one way to create a signal chain in your DAW. But again, TONEX was not meant to be that soup to nuts signal chain builder. It's a tone model, which means it's a snapshot in time of a certain amp in a certain configuration. So, but if you are using Amplitude and you're using it on your computer, absolutely you can create signal chains. You just can't put it on the TONEX pedal. Well, it seems we have a disgruntled commenter in our midst.
Sound really plastic. Wow! Ultra digital. After watching this video and hearing those sounds, I lost the desire to buy it. Thanks friends for making this video, helping us not waste valuable time of our lives looking for good sound. Great video!
Well, Mr. Official, I do appreciate that you like my videos, so maybe you're not that disgruntled. But the truth is, the TONEX pedal or the TONEX platform, it's not for everybody. You know, being impartial as a reviewer on YouTube, you know, I do try to be careful. I only like to review things that I like. I prefer real amps. I'm going to say that right away. I love amplifiers. I have 4 functioning tube amps here in my studio, and I have designs on getting more. But I really do enjoy TONEX. I don't think it sounds digital. I don't think it sounds plastic. I've modeled my own amplifiers and played them side by side. It was enough to convince me that it's very realistic sounding. I almost call it amp preservation, right? Because if you've got a preset that you like or a setup on the amp, you can capture that. And you know, when I'm doing demos here and things like that, I can recall that setting over and over again. It's going to be the same. And in a mix, you're not going to tell the difference. Now, I think it's a bit of a cynical view if you're just going to look at a review or two and just judge by that, say, well, it sounds plastic. Though I respect your own opinions. If you like real amplifiers, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because I love real amplifiers. It all comes down to what you want. But of course, TONEX is not for everyone. But real amps are not for everyone either. Ultimately, it just comes down to your own taste.
1. What happens if you capture a delay or chorus, flanger, treble, anything that's not built in, pedal? 2. What happens if you capture a reverb pedal? Easy way to get unlimited reverbs?
You know, that's a great question. A lot of people ask that question. Can we capture a tone model with some effects on it? You know, hey, let's put a chorus pedal there, a delay or something, and just capture that whole experience, and our tone model will have all these effects built in. Well, the simple answer is nope. You cannot capture a tone model. They explicitly say this is tone. So what's tone? Distortion, overdrive, boost, the amplifier, of course, any EQ settings that you put on the amplifier, and the end result with the cabinet, with or without the cabinet. But no, you cannot capture, we'll call them digital effects or any other effects that you can add. Even reverbs, you don't want to do that. The tone models are basically tone and nothing else.
I would like to use it too as IR loader with my amp head plus load box. I've tried to find the manual in their website to check it out, but I don't find it anywhere.
All right, so I've actually tested this, and my answer is maybe. And hear me out. Now, within the pedal, you've got a lot of editing settings you can tweak and for days and whatever. But one of the things that we can do it in the TONEX app, we can do it on the pedal, is if we have a tone model with, let's say, an amp and a cabinet, we can turn off the cabinet, right? That means we can run this into, let's say, a power amp and go into an actual speaker cabinet if that's what we want to do on stage. But I went through this to see if I could turn off the amplifier and just leave the cabinet here alone. And I couldn't figure out how to do that on the pedal, which means it might not be possible. But I figured out a workaround. So I went back to the desktop and I set up a preset where I turned off the amplifier and just had a cabinet, turned off reverbs. There was nothing there, just a cabinet. And then I saved that as a preset. And then with the librarian, I dragged that preset onto the pedal. So when I recalled it here on the pedal, well, lo and behold, I had a preset here with just a cabinet. So in theory, I could take an amplifier, run it through a DI, run it into here, and suddenly this becomes a cab IR loader. Now here's the thing, and it's sort of the gray area, the thing that I can't really answer. This input, I assume, was designed for instrument levels, right? So a guitar or bass plugs directly into the input with no amplification, does its processing here, gives you an output that you have to amplify later. I don't know if it can handle loud volumes coming into it, like line level, because when you take an amplifier, run it through, let's say, the surd reactive load, now I need to take the output from that reactive load. I'm getting a line level, which is, okay, maybe not as loud as if I'm sitting here in the room, but it's a loud signal compared to instrument level. I don't know how much this device can handle. I don't know enough about electronics to know if that even matters. Now, I tested it and it actually works, but I would proceed with caution. I don't have an official word from IK. I could look into it. I don't have it at this moment, but just remember that this was designed for instrument level input here, guitars and basses. Signals that you're going to get out of your DI are going to be significantly louder. Now, I tried it and it works. If you want to try it, just proceed with caution. I don't know if you're going to do damage to this pedal or not. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. I'm not really sure, but I'm not an authority, so I'm not going to say you can do it for sure. But in theory, that's how you would do it. And yes, it kind of worked.
Just ordered mine from IK. Got a great price as I own 2 licenses for TONEX Max and A5 full with every ass on.
So I didn't mention this in my video, but I did get word that if you already own a TONEX license, that you actually can get a discount on the pedal. I didn't want to say for sure. I didn't know exactly what the discount was. But yes, IK Multimedia is offering discounts to people who already have a license because the TONEX pedal comes shipped with TONEX Max on it, and it might actually be Amplitude too. You want to check that, but you're getting a bundle. So what if you already have the software, but you haven't purchased the pedal? Is it fair you have to pay for everything all over again? So IK is actually giving you credits. They're a really good company that way. So I would check with your IK Multimedia dealer or IK Multimedia Direct, but word is people are getting discounts on their pedal if they already have a license of TONEX. And that's a paid license, by the way. And we've now arrived at the last question.
Could it be used to add another channel to an amp?
So the simplest answer to that question is yes, but there are some considerations. Now, as I demonstrated in my main video, if you take the output of the TONEX pedal and run it into the return of your tube amp, you need an effects loop. What that does is bypasses the preamp on your amplifier, basically turns your amplifier into a power amp, right? So suddenly this becomes your preamp. So you have an infinite number, well, infinite, but you got a lot of presets here, different amplifiers, so you can call them different preamp channels. Now, the thing is, if you want to be able to switch between, let's say, one of these channels and then your actual amplifier, that's where it gets a little more complicated. Because when you're using the pedal direct and you're bypassing the amplifier or just using it as a power amp, you need to plug your guitar into the input of the TONEX pedal. If you're using your amplifier, obviously you are plugging into the face of the amplifier. So there's a bit of a switcheroo that has to go there in terms of how you're routing your signal. Now, if you want to switch in between songs, well, you're going to have some custom switching ability to be able to switch from going straight into the face of the amp or going through the pedal. It is possible, but it's just another layer of something you have to think about. Now, if you're doing it in between songs, well, you just do a quick little switcheroo and you're good to go. So technically, yes, you're going to get a whole bunch of new channels for your amplifier. And I did test that a lot where I was using tone models without any cabinets, running it through the return of my effects loop, and then using my actual cabinet here. It's got some great results that way. And if you're not going to use your amp at all for your tones and it's all going to be pedal, then you're going to get tons and tons of channels here. There's 50 banks of 3 sounds each, so it's like 150 presets. So that's like 150 different channels. So very, very versatile little pedal with all sorts of uses. And hopefully that answers that question, and hopefully that answers all of your questions. But I'm sure there will be more. Well, we've come to the end of another episode of QCC. And as always, I want to thank my good friends in the cheap seats for joining me today. Do you think you're going to be picking up a TONEX pedal for yourself?
Well, if it gives me good reason to stay away from here, I'll probably grab 2.
Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. If you want to contribute to this QCC segment, you can leave a comment in this video or really any of my videos. If I pick a theme, sometimes I do general episodes. I do pick through comments on any video. They're all fair game. So leave me a comment somewhere. I'll either answer it in the comments, or at least I'll do my best, and perhaps it will appear on a future episode of QCC. If you want to do a deeper dive with me, I'm on Patreon. I have affiliate links, including a lot of the gear that I have here in my studio. Affiliate links really help if you're looking to spend on some gear for your studio. Doesn't cost you anything more, but it contributes a little bit of cash to this studio here. It helps me bring content for you guys, and I really appreciate that. I've got merch. Did I mention Patreon? Anyways, it's all in the description, and I really appreciate all the support. But the most important thing is to check out another video. I've got one waiting for you right here. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video.